Candice, let's just start with the ABCs. Digital migration for all SADC countries by the year 2015. They've entered into an agreement with the International Telecommunications Union. That was a few years ago. How feasible is this plan?
Well, as you say, the agreement was signed in 2006, and the SADC countries form part of Region 1, right, which has agreed to switch over to digital TV by 2015. For South Africa at the moment, it's looking less and less feasible, primarily because the Department of Communications, I think in June, decided to review the standard that we were using in the basic rollout of digital TV, digital migration. Introducing a second standard. We'd been working on DVB, which is the European standard, and it's being used widely across the world. In fact, MultiChoice currently uses it for its satellite services, and the Department of Communications decided to introduce a second possibility, which is a Brazilian standard, an adaptation of a Japanese standard.
Okay, let's talk about these two different standards and why the DVB is preferred. The other one is ISDB.
Well, at the moment, the discussions aren't about whether it's preferred or not, because it's very difficult to say which is better. I have various people coming to me saying this one is better over this one. We can't for certain say that, although there are going to be tests in the near future and hopefully we can see. But at the end of the day, South Africa has been working towards this since 2006. And the SADC countries have been working towards it since 2006, all on the standard, the European standard DVB. To introduce the Brazilian standard or the Japanese standard now makes things very difficult, because the investments that the industry has made, and I'm seeing estimates of 700 million rand into the process of migrating to digital television, is a waste. They have to now go back to the drawing board and start again. New networks, new TV systems inside the broadcasters.
But you do have one SADC country that seems to have completed its migration introduction and process, and that's Mauritius. But it's a middle income economy, and you could argue that they have the resources. What about the smaller, poorer ones?
Well, there are other countries that have already started migrating, Kenya, Uganda, but Mauritius is really a success story, and they have worked very hard to get to where they are. They're 80% coverage, and they plan to switch off the analog TV by 2012. Although they're expecting it to be sooner, as soon as next year. Mauritius is fantastic, but there are loads of countries in the SADC region that are switching to the DVB digital TV.
What is this going to mean for consumers? Because apparently you're going to need a decoder or a receiver in order to go digital.
Well, the debate at the moment is you do need a receiver to receive digital TV, and it's similar to your MultiChoice decoder that you get, or your NMET decoder that you get. You need that to receive the digital signal to convert it into a TV picture. The debate at the moment is, if we go with the DVB decoders, they can be manufactured at a far lower cost than the ISDB decoders, although that is disputed by the Brazilian government at the moment. The reason we believe that the ISDB decoders the Brazilian decoders would be more expensive is because they don't have the economies of scale that the European standard has. Because so many people across the world are using the European standard, the decoders and the availability of those decoders is much wider. So it's easier to sell them.
Is it a real challenge for Africa? And I'm just speaking anecdotally as opposed to empirically here. We're told that Africa's just coming on board in terms of the mobile space, the internet space. And so there is a sense that if people were to start thinking about which model to employ, it doesn't really matter, because it's new, fertile, untapped ground. So people are just coming into the television space. And if you're going to go digital, either DVB or ISDB, it doesn't really matter, because it's an untapped market.
It does matter. It's a misnomer that it's an untapped market. Many countries across the continent have been implementing or working towards implementing digital TV. It's not a one-stop shop. It's not a tomorrow we switch on digital TV and everyone's got it. People have to set standards for the manufacturing of the decoders. People have to roll out antenna for networks. People like Centec and Orbicom who carry signals for the broadcasters, they have to go out and build towers across the country, and they have to cover them before 2015. And all of these things have to be rolled out by then. We've been working towards that since 2006. So to go and we were ready to get started. We were supposed to start selling the decoders in April this year, and they're ready to go. They're waiting to go. But unfortunately, the change in standard has set everything back and has just basically halted the whole process.
All you care about is the rugby, we know, as long as the television is clear enough to show the major games. But economically, what does this mean?
Well, I think obviously the technical issues will defer to Candice because all the acronyms are difficult to deal with. But I think the issue is uncertainty, and as you saw, you can create parallels with that in the mining sector, healthcare sector. It's just uncertainty. So from an investment point of view, you look at investors, you can see one or two players got really upset. I think it was Altec, people have said that they've overreacted and that they've threatened to take court action if this goes ahead. But you can see the angst that it causes inside investors in the investment sphere. The other thing is that we've recently seen in this sort of sector, the entrance of opportunities outside of DSTV and outside of MultiChoice, which is great for competition. But I suppose the concern around it is with ambiguity and uncertainty. Right. Would they come through?
Okay, you raised two issues here, and we'll talk about competition for MultiChoice and options available for satellite TV. Manufacturers locally, how widespread and established is the industry for the manufacture of these decoders, etc.? And if we move to DVB, we are already sort of employing DVB, if we move to the Brazilian option, what does it mean for the industry, for the sustainability of the industry?
Well, the size of the industry at the moment is also a little bit vague. In 2008, the Department of Communications instituted the policy of the growing the manufacturing sector for these decoders. Altec is definitely one of the largest ones. There are several others and a lot of retailers that work together with them. And the biggest issue isn't that they can't build these devices. They can. If the Brazilian standard comes in today, the manufacturers can go back and start rebuilding the devices and have them out with a reasonable time frame, say 2 or 3 years. The problem is that they've already got devices built on the DVB standard, because that was the standard we were working towards, the European standard. So economically, they lose a lot of money by having made all of these boxes to distribute, and now they can't.
And what does it mean for satellite TV? You were saying that MultiChoice is okay for now, but does it mean that if we employ another standard, we're going to start seeing the emergence of new satellite channels and hence competition?
No. MultiChoice on the satellite standard is very safe. There is no trouble with what they're doing, because they're on a broadcasting frequency that allows them to use a satellite standard. So they're using the DVB version for satellite, where the implementation of the digital migration for TV now is called terrestrial. Right. So it's a different frequency, it's a different wavelength in the air. There's not going to be an issue. The big issue comes in 2015 when the protection of the broadcasting frequencies that we're using now for analog falls away. In other words, the frequencies, the spectrum that will be used when the broadcasters move from analog to digital will be handed over to the mobile operators for high-speed broadband networks.
So it's the national public broadcasters in many of these countries that are going to be affected?
Yes.
More so?
Yes.
And they already have funding issues if you look at the SABC.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about the mobile providers, because this provides fertile new ground and opportunities for them to enter into.
Absolutely. It's what we're calling the digital dividend spectrum. It becomes available when the analog gets switched off, and they can then take this and use it for high-speed networks, for WiMAX and for LTE. You're looking at exceptionally fast speeds, more than triple what we're getting now in our local, on your mobile phones at the moment. This will be used across the globe as a standard, so this spectrum will be used across the globe. So people will be manufacturing laptops and mobile phones that use this frequency, which means that people coming from the US or from the UK to South Africa try and use their phone to access the internet, and they won't be able to, because if we don't migrate by 2015, that spectrum won't be available for mobile applications.
And I rely heavily on my phone to provide me with information throughout the course of the day. Did you watch any of the World Cup games on your mobile phone? Because we were told that's the new generation, that's the next dimension.
Sure. Unfortunately not. I don't think the technology is that widespread, but I suppose we look forward to those speeds that Candice talks about.
And so you think this is the right way to go?
hopefully so.
Well, I watched Vodacom testing their LTE tower yesterday, and they're cracking speeds of over 100 megabits per second, which is exceptionally fast.